Hello everyone. It's 4 o'clock, so we'll make a start. I just want to say how excited we are to actually be here today to launch this resource. So a very warm welcome to our webinar. This webinar, as I say, marks the launch of our early years resource to raise an awareness of sustainability and STEM in the early years. During this webinar, you will hear from an esteemed panel members who've been involved in the production of this resource. You'll be introduced to it, how to use it, what about the background, the aims, what about the intentions, as well as exploring the resource through some examples. During the webinar, there is an opportunity for you to ask questions. And as Stacey has said, please use the question function that's on the panel there at the side, and we will answer as many questions as we can at the end. For now, a very warm welcome, and I'm going to hand back to my colleague Stacey, and we'll begin.
Welcome everyone. I can see lots of people here already, which is fantastic. And please do take us up on the offer to put any questions or comments as well into the question box for us. So I have the privilege of introducing the panel members today. So I'm just going to give everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves. So we're going to start with our first panel member, Dr. Diane Boyd. Diane, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon. My name's Diane. I'm a senior lecturer at Liverpool John Moores University, and I've had the pleasure of working with Janet and Stacey and Joe from August in developing this resource, and we are all very excited, and we hope you will be too when you have had the chance to look at it. Thank you, and I'll pass you over to Janet.
Thank you. So me again. So I'm Janet King. I'm the Sector Manager for Education and Childcare at NCFE. And it's been an absolute privilege to work with Diane, with Stacey and with Joe to be able to bring this resource to life. And my background has been in further education and higher education, as well as those years spent in industry. So seeing something like this come to fruition is an absolute privilege for me. I'll pass back to Stacey.
Hi everyone, I'm Stacey Mann. I'm the Early Years and Childcare Subject Specialist here at NCFE, working on most of the cash products. And this resource is just amazing. I cannot wait to show everyone, specifically all of the lovely activities that you will be able to do with all of the children that you work with, which is just amazing. And I really think you'll love it as much as we do. And I'm just now going to pass over to Joe.
Thank you, Stacey. Yes, hello everyone. So my name's Joe Neame and I'm the Science Subject Specialist here at the NCFE, which means I work on all science queries across all of our qualifications. Just to echo what everyone else has said, it's been an absolute privilege to work on this resource, and I'm just as excited just to really introduce this resource and the exciting opportunities it's got within it. And I'll hand back over.
Brilliant. So let's have a think about sustainability. Why is it so important to raise an awareness of sustainability in STEM in the early years? Well, young children, as we know, are naturally curious, and there are many opportunities to embed that provoke learning, and these can lie within the sustainability field. We hear so much, don't we, about climate change, environmental issues regarding sustainability, and this awareness can be raised through our practice. Sustainability is very much based on values. It's about respect, it's about relationships, and the early years provides optimum opportunities for those foundations to be laid. We know that. Activities and experiences have been linked to sustainability in STEM within this resource and will offer staff, students and parents the opportunity to raise this awareness through everyday practice. As you know, Stacey and I have worked with others to ensure this resource is the best it can possibly be. Working with Dr. Boyd from Liverpool John Moores University, working with Joe Neame, our science subject specialist, very, very important in bringing that expertise together, but also in acknowledging and appreciating what is happening in early years practice that's actually linked already to sustainability, but we need to raise an awareness and bring these things together, which we hope the resource will do, with lots of ideas, activities and examples to support you. We're going to hear now from Jo and from Diane to hear their much valued views. Jo, if I can hand over to you initially, please.
Thanks, Janet. And yet, like Janet says, we're just going to start by looking at what is STEM and its links to sustainability. And first of all, I just want to look at what is STEM and its importance within the early years. So quite simply, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering and maths, and all the subjects that come under that umbrella. Now, these subjects are so important as they help children make sense of the world, exploring the what if and how of everything around them. Through that what if and how approach to STEM, children begin to connect with and develop a passion for the environment, for nature, and importantly, their relationship with nature. STEM also plays a major role within meeting the Sustainable Development Goals. As Dr. Boyd will go on and talk about, there are many challenges facing sustainability, and STEM is one of our main tools to developing a more sustainable future. And to help get students infused in STEM subjects, starting early matters. This will set them up to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. Furthermore, engaging children in STEM will help address the various equality gaps seen within the industry. So, for example, in 2019, only 24% of those working in STEM were women, according to a study done in 2021. This, along with many other reasons, is why it's important we get all children excited about STEM from a very young age. And fundamentally, through this resource, we want to make STEM as enjoyable as possible and, importantly, accessible. And I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Boyd, who's going to talk more about sustainability and the Sustainable Development Goals.
So what is sustainability? It is commonly acknowledged that there are three pillars for sustainability: environmental, economic and social cultural. We tend to hear an awful lot about environmental, but it's really important that we recognise that all three are interconnected and they must not be considered in isolation. If you only consider one pillar at a time, for instance, environmental, you're drastically reducing the impact of the strategy or the action. So if you think about something from an environmental perspective, there will always be a social, cultural and an economic impact too. Pioneering ideas of early childhood are the foundations of early childhood education for sustainability. Key pioneers such as Froebel, Montessori, Owen and Steiner all advocated for social justice, equality, rights, empowerment of all children, especially the disadvantaged and girls. They also recognised the importance of the environment as a valuable resource, but also recognise the interconnectedness of the child to their world. Early childhood is situated in the ecological context of the family, the locality, the community and the global world. And children therefore need to be aware of how they are interconnected. And that means to the human world and also to the non-human world. So children start to have a feeling of empathy and awareness of others. And that can be the caterpillar, the buttercup, the tree, as well as each other. Children must not, however, be framed as saviours of the planet. But if the foundations are laid in early childhood, research shows that it has an impact on their development. So why the early years? So why is it important that we have done this resource for early years? Research shows it is the time when all foundations of fundamental attitudes and values are first put into place. We know from research and from experience that even very young children are capable of sophisticated thinking in relation to socio-economic and socio-environmental issues, and that the earlier these ideas, like Jo said in terms with STEM, are introduced, the greater their impact and influence can be. So, the Sustainable Development Goals. When I started to do the research around them in the summer, I was struggling to find teachers and practitioners who had actually any understanding of what the Sustainable Development Goals were. And that was across the board, even geography teachers who would say to me, I'm ashamed, I'm a geography teacher and I don't know what they are. And so it sort of prompted me to start this journey to sort of really highlight and signpost everybody to the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17, and each goal, again, like the 3 pillars of sustainability, must not be recognised as being in isolation. They must be recognised as being interconnected. So if we work towards Sustainable Development Goal 17, which is about partnership, then we should be able to work towards quality education, good health and well-being, gender equality, and so on. It's about like recognizing how the connections are made. And hopefully this resource, which has got concentrates on each and every one of the Sustainable Development Goals, provides provocations, not learning outcomes or expectations for planning. It is provocations, because we recognize that every single child in a different part of the country and the different part of the city or in different part of the road will have different cultural experiences, and therefore will react in different ways to the provocations. But the most important thing is for the educator or the student or the teacher or the parent to follow the children's lead and see where it goes, because as it's stated about research, children have got developed their fundamental values now, and they are capable of dealing with complex societal issues. Thank you very much. I will pass over now to the next speaker.
Thank you, Diane. That was really insightful, and it was so lovely to hear from Jo as well, with the STEM aspect of things. And what I have the lovely privilege of doing now is giving you a little bit of a glimpse of the resource. So this is the resource that we've been discussing, and the link to this has been made available already in the on the NCFE Early Years Sector Specialism page, and you will be getting a follow-up email that will have that link in there as well. So what I really wanted to talk about, having listened to everybody else, is that Jo talked about the children getting excited about STEM. And what I feel this resource does is gets the staff excited about STEM, the adults working with the children excited about all of those lovely things and about the SDGs, and also making it accessible. So it might be that this is the first time you've heard anything about Sustainable Development Goals, and you're sort of looking at it thinking, oh my goodness, we've got another thing to do, another thing to add, another thing to link into. What this resource does is it's done all of that for you, and so it makes it really accessible and it links to what you already do. So I'm just going to show you how we might be using this resource. So the resource is it includes activities for the setting, provocations, and they're presented. The activity sheets can be given to students, to parents and carers, so that you can really share everything that is going on in the setting. And then, of course, you're really having that impact on the wider community that you're working with as well. Practitioners could develop simple resource packs to support each activity for parents to borrow and enjoy with their children at the setting or at home. And there's lots of links in there for your own CPD. So for the adult CPD, for you to go away and find out about the SDGs, links for you to find out about how to implement the SDGs. There are book ideas in there, which we are increasing language and literacy in the setting constantly and thinking of new ways to do that. So there's lots of book ideas in there too. By increasing that confidence of the staff, the children are really going to get excited. The teachers in the children's lives are so important, and the way that you deliver something is going to be really impactful on how they receive it. So the reflection, the provocations, and the sustained shared thinking that is going to be going on whilst you're using this resource is going to be fantastic. And we would really like to hear how it is implemented into the settings that you might be linked to. And we'd really like to hear about how it's being used, how it can be improved, and lots of different things that we can include. It already fits into the EYFS, so into the early years foundation stage framework, we've already linked it there for you. So it's not that we're giving you an extra piece of work for you to go away and link to the EYFS. It's already been done. So it's really accessible, really easy to use, and quite exciting, I feel, as well. It will also develop children's lines of inquiry, with you being able to engage in deeper questioning and talking, and, as I said, sustained shared thinking. This is an example of one of the pages, just so that you can see a little glimpse inside the resource today. And of course, you can go away and have a look and download it and do what you need to do with it. But this is just a little bit of an example for you. And we're going to go into some deeper examples in a little while. So you will see that the SDGs very clearly stated at the top of the page, and it's a very simple format for everybody to follow. So it's the SDGs at the top, and then possible STEM provocations for that SDG. And then we've got links to development matters. We've got links to the EYFS within there as well, and some lovely graphics in there for you to have a look at, and photos for you to see, and different ways that you can achieve that SDG within your setting. So this one here is just discussing with the children ways to collect rainwater. And of course, that can be communicated to the parents as well and have that wider reach. The feedback that we've received so far is that it's innovative, and most importantly, it's easy to use. So we have had a few people that have implemented it into their setting, into their ethos already, just to review it for us before it went live. So again, we'd really like to hear from you if you start to use it as well. I am just going to open up to everybody on the panel to see if they would like to add anything on how to use the resource before we go on to Joe's example.
Thank you, Stacey. I'll come in. It's Janet. I'll come in just for a second, just to say thank you to everybody who spoke so far, but also just to really urge and encourage people to pick up the resource, to have a look. It's free to download. You know, have a look, see what you think. And there are so many different activities and experiences within this document that will appeal to the children within your setting, that will appeal to students as activities and experiences to use within early years settings, as well as practitioners, and also for parents to be able to do. So there are some very straightforward things. And I think sometimes, you know, it's about, yes, we want to encourage sustainability. Of course, we want to expand our understanding of nature and get children outdoors, and that relationship that Diane was talking about with the outside world and with nature and so on. But this is about, well, how do we do that? Because there's so much going on, and there are so many things going on. So what this resource does is pull this together and give you those examples. And by doing so, there are going to be so many opportunities for holistic development and learning to cover that early years foundation stage framework, that will actually appeal to individual children as well, that will provoke curiosity, that will provoke interest, that will really motivate and inspire, as well as those important things that we've heard about from the panel so far, in terms of laying down those really strong foundations for you know, those positive relationships with others, including the way that we interact with our environment. I don't know if anybody else on the panel would like to come in. Thank you.
Yes, hello. I would also like to add that the resource was also shared with the Early Childhood Studies Degree Network, and they gave some reviews, and we have added more into it to help with from an academic perspective. So there is a clear understanding of reflexivity and the importance of, as you go through and understand sustainability, a lot of it is about you yourself. When you are trying to provoke the children, that you sort of reflect from your own perspective as well as allowing the children to reflect. And that reflection then also must feed in to support the next thinking, the next aspect of your journey and process. There is also a wonderful piece by Angela Scolan who talked about how to talk to the children, with links to the Mosaic approach, to Reggio Emilio's visible thinking through thinking books, and recognizing that children want to be part of the process. It's not about teacher control, it's about the children leading this. At the back of the resource, there is the qualifications and assessment for the CASH level 2. There is also all of the early childhood studies benchmark standards that have links to sustainability, and there is the teaching standards as well. So if you have students who are coming into your class who are doing a postgrad, or who are from early childhood or from CASH, then this resource is something that you could share with them, or they could share with you, and that you learn together about sustainability. Thank you. I'll pass over to Joe.
Thank you. And here we have an example, a specific example of one of our STEM resources called Ready, Steady, Let's Grow. And I'm not going to make any comment on who's been responsible for those science puns. And on the resource, it has a suggested age range, a link to learning and development. So for example, this resource links to the early learning goal of the natural world and understanding the world. And then it also links to those sustainable development goals as well. And in this case, zero hunger and quality education. It also details all the resources that will be needed to carry out the activity. So as Stacey was mentioning, maybe having those resources ready in a pack to go home if needed. And in this case, they will need cress seeds, soil, cardboard pots, and coloured felt tips. And then we move on to the actual method. And so this activity is all about growing cress. However, there is a bit of a twist. And that twist is getting students to, one, grow them in direct sunlight, and to grow the other pots in darkness. And then in both cases, they will also see the effect of seeds that receive water and seeds that won't. Now, this task helps students to understand sustainability as it links to growing crops, to the weather, and to the availability of water. Now, it's important to mention, and this was alluded to by the rest of the panel just a second ago, that you're not limited to just this method. Children may want to take this further and maybe plant things outside, or you may even end up leaving cress plants all over the place. And that's absolutely fine, because one of the most important things with these resources is getting children to investigate, to have fun with it, and to go their own way. The methods provided in the resource are there as a guide, but we want children to be investigating, to be exploring, to be using their wonder to explore the world around them. And importantly, we want children to have fun with this and not just feel like they're following a method because they have to. And that will apply to yourselves as well. You want to be having fun with this, not just feeling like it's something that you have to do, really having that enjoyment and that excitement around STEM. And through this, we'll help get the children excited about STEM. And I'm now going to hand over back to Dr. Boyd.
Hi, Sustainable Development Goal 8 is called Decent Work and Economic Growth, and it focuses on promoting sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for all. Now you might be thinking, why on earth how would I be able to do that in an early years setting? One of the projects that I have done in the past was called the Legacy Cafes, where elders came into the children's centre and was teaching the children and the parents, so it was multi-generational, how to sew and knit. Because it turned out that we are losing a lot of the productive traditional skills from the past because we are having this throwaway society. During the research, one of the parents actually said that if their one button came off their school shirt, they threw the whole shirt away. So that sort of prompted the idea of recognizing that we need to ensure that children and their parents have an understanding of how they can support saving the planet in just one little step at a time. Because if you think about every single person in the world who has got a school shirt, if that's the attitude they have, if I'll throw it away if a button comes off, or it's got too big or too small, I'll throw it away. Where is it going? It will be going to landfill, and therefore we've got to change this sort of mindset. But as I said earlier, sustainability is embedded into historical early childhood. Steiner, Montessori, Froebel all advocated that children should be able to sew a button on. I now embed this into my first year module with my early childhood studies students. Out of a group of 65 students this year, 3 had ever sewn a button on. So now it's part of the tradition of my modules to ensure that they can sew, so that when they go into settings and nurseries and schools, they can do the same sort of thing. So as Froebel and Montessori and Steiner said, let's teach them to sew a button on. It's also, if you bring in people from outside to support you, parents, carers, grandparents, to do this project in your setting, you're also doing intergenerational learning, which also is linked to SDG 10, which is recognizing the importance of recognizing that everybody has a place in society. And obviously, learning to sew a button on is good for fine motor skills and determination. Within the resource, there is a link to the Legacy project that happened at Everton in Liverpool because the BBC came to film. So you can see the sort of activities that the children did, plus there are some other activities in the resource that can help children in the beginning of learning to sew a button on. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. So really, I just want to reflect a little bit on what we've been talking about so far, and really, what sort of comes to mind is if we were in a room now and we were asking how many people plant seeds or would think about planting seeds as an activity with young children, the hands would the majority of hands, I would imagine, would be raised. But listening to Jo and thinking about those conditions that were actually applied and the learning opportunities there that we may miss, let's think about the importance of water. What happens if we don't give the seeds water to grow? What happens if we don't allow exposure to sunlight and things like that? We don't necessarily expose our children to, very young children, to that learning opportunity. And if I was asking the same question in the same room about those conditions and about those opportunities for further provocation, I would imagine a lot of the hands go down. Mine would have gone down because I'd have been thinking about, yep, we're going to grow some seeds. Isn't it wonderful to see that cycle of growth? But I wouldn't have been thinking about those different opportunities where those kind of raising those thoughts and provocations and questions might be coming from. So it's really interesting to just take stock and think, these are things we may be doing as part of our everyday practice, things that we know young children enjoy doing. These activities, these experiences are things that we're perhaps doing all of the time. We might think about rainwater, we might think about collecting rainwater with older children, or comment on the amount of rain that's been collected in a bucket that's been left outside of the setting, for example. But do we then think about the questions that could come from that? Do we think about the opportunities for bringing in STEM, for bringing in those wider conversations around sustainability and the criticality of water, for example, for us all, and how important it is in all of our lives. And so what this resource does is actually sort of signpost to that and give opportunities to help you as practitioners, as students, members of staff, and also to share with family members how those thoughts and provocations can actually be shared and raised, which I think are so important. So as we've already sort of said, we really want to hear from you. We want to hear in terms of what's next. We want to hear how you feel about it. You've got contact details when you do enjoy looking through that resource at your leisure. Please do get back to us, because we want to make sure that this resource continues to evolve, to reflect current practice, to reflect current policy, as well as curricula. So we also want to receive case studies, and Diane mentioned then, you know, some of the activities and things that are going on already, and Stacey as well, the activities and experiences within the resource and how they're being used and piloted out there in the sector, whether that's by staff or students in a particular course. So students doing that NCFE Cash Level 2, Level 3, Early Years Practitioner, Early Years Educator qualifications will really have some more examples of activities and experiences that they could bring to the setting as well, which will be really important for us to hear about. You know, how did they go? We would love to be able to share some case studies on our website and so on. So please do keep in touch with us. We really want this to be something that works really, that increases and improves the awareness of sustainability, but through some really engaged, focused opportunities with children and with their families. So that would be my key message. Diane, I don't know if you want to add anything to that from your perspective.
I was going to pick up first of all on Joe and the rainwater, the page that you were privileged to have a look at about SDG 6 water. One of the words, because there's always new terminology associated with each of the next one, go back that one, with it, there's always new terminology associated with each of the Sustainable Development Goals. And as you can see in the two images, one image is from Kenya and the other image is from Queensland. And therefore, it's sort of like, again, taking the children out of where they are and getting them to start to think about other places that might have, we're lucky we can just turn a water tap on. But the little girl at the bottom in the red hat, they were given a little tiny ladle and they had to only have that much water. And it was teaching children about conserving water. The word was conserving, because of the fact that in Australia they have a lot of droughts. So it's trying to get children to sort of like think beyond, well, I can just turn the tap on, and to think about the impact of not having water. If you say you can only have 5 ladles of water, how do they sort of like manage to do the activities they want to do? And then what do they feel when they have no water left? And so it's actually starting to sort of like make them realize that there are big societal issues in the world. There are images of drought-riven riverbeds, and these are provocations to talk about. In terms of what's next, Janet and I have had conversations, and the next process will be to implement the Welsh Foundation phase, the Northern Ireland Foundation stage, and the Scottish Curriculum for Excellence. So they will replace the early years foundation stage aspects of the resource, and that will be in the new year, so it will then become accessible for the rest of the devolved country. I have a colleague in America who is going to add and change it to the American framework and share it with OMEP USA, and it is also going to go out to Gibraltar, and it will go out to Australia. So there is potential for the fact that this resource, which is really the first in the kind in the world, to embed sustainability into early years, because our curriculums don't have it. So you are part of an exciting project that is just beginning.
Thank you, Diane, that was wonderful. We're now going to move on to the question and answers. So all the panel members are going to be included in this. So the first question that we have coming through, and please do keep the questions coming through because we have a little bit of time now to go through them. Do we think early years staff have enough knowledge of sustainability? So any of the panel that would like to answer that?
I would jump in first and say that this document will provide you with the beginnings of the journey to find out. At the very beginning, I introduce you to sustainability. I tell you about what it is. I give you links for you to watch videos so that you can become more familiar. But I think if you embrace the Reggio Emilia approach, which is highlighted within the document as well, about co-researchers and co-learners, it's about going on a journey together. you could say with the children, we don't know much about Sustainable Development Goals, so let's find out about them. This week, we're going to look at Sustainable Development Goal 1. And being open with children is really important. So that's what I would say, is that this is something that you can go along on the journey with the children. But if you already have a bit of understanding, then this is something you can pick up to and run with as well.
I would absolutely agree. And just really that honesty, you know, do we all, does any of us know enough about sustainability? Will we ever? Maybe not. But what is important is that we take an interest in it and that we are aware of our role and what our role could be. So I think through these simple steps, we're actually doing, you know, using the medium of education and with children and young people. So we're looking at play, we're looking at simple activities and experiences, and in that way we're making those connections. We're making connections between our everyday practice and sustainability and STEM, of course, as well, which is all, and they're all embedded within each other. So I think this resource is an excellent start in terms of, you know, um, do we do anything for sustainability? Well, perhaps you think about recycling, perhaps we think about those sorts of things. Do we do anything with the children to try and embed knowledge rather than, you know, the obvious benefits of role modeling? Absolutely, we mustn't stop doing that, absolutely not. But there's more, you know, that we can do, and that children are capable of appreciating at a very young age. So this resource will help you by giving you the information at your fingertips to be able to do some of those simple things and take big steps in terms of education around sustainability.
Thank you both. That's lovely, and I agree and echo everything that you've said. I think it's really important that we do equip ourselves with some knowledge. But I love that idea of going on a journey with the children, and I'm listening to this as well as collaborating with you guys. It's been really interesting for me as a parent to read some of these things and put some of these things into place myself. So thank you, everybody that has contributed to this resource. It's been fantastic. The second question is, how can STEM support holistic learning?
I think
Oh,
I'll
Jo,
come
I
in on
think
that one,
yeah,
Stacey. I think.
yeah,
I think that's
lovely.
aimed at you, Jo.
Just really just to echo the points that we made earlier, just in terms of making sure that when we're teaching STEM, you know, there can be that perception that it's just going to be, we're going to sit down, we're going to read a method, we're going to follow something step by step. And in terms of a holistic approach, we don't want that within the early years. We want that exploration, we want that investigative approach to STEM. You know, it's that what if and how, getting students to take that on and then linking it obviously to the Sustainable Development Goals. But you know, I'll say it over and over again, and this is something I'm quite passionate about. My background as a secondary school teacher, so I saw children come in at a secondary school level and, you know, have a bit of a grumble and a groan about coming into science. And, you know, I think we need to address that early on, get them exploring, get them investigated. And the most important thing is getting them excited about STEM. And that holistic approach will be invaluable to doing that within the early years.
Absolutely, I would totally agree. And I think it's very much like maths. If it's not your area and it's something that scares you as an adult, then you're not going to deliver it in a way that is exciting and engaging, and you're not going to want to get involved in it. So it's almost sort of taking that away, doing a little bit of CPD yourself, doing a bit of confidence digging before, and then just making sure that you are providing these provocations that ensure some curiosity and investigation and exploration, just as you said. And I think that's really, really important. And maybe that links quite well with what I was going to ask next, really, which was, how can the resource support the training of students? So I think we've got this resource going into quite a few different arenas here, haven't we? So how do you guys feel that the resource will support the training of students?
I'll jump in first. It will be used by students at Liverpool John Moores University at different levels, level 4, level 5 and level 6. Level 4 have been introduced to the idea of it. Level 5 are going to be looking at it extensively, and level 6, some of them are going to be using it for their dissertations. As I said, it's gone out to the Early Childhood Degree Network to be used across the universities across England, with the potential idea of a research project at the end where we come together and we look to see how the resources has been used, how it's been felt, what needs to be added to it, and also sort of because it's a grassroots approach, it's coming from the bottom up, so the students will go into the setting, and it might be that when the students go into the setting that they say, I'd like to do something around sustainable development goals, and the teacher doesn't know anything about them. So again, it goes on that journey together. The teacher will become informed by the student, and therefore it's that co-research and co-learning together. And because of the fact that the level 2 to level 7 is in the back of the resource, it gives teachers and students and academic an easy way of being able to like cross-link over to what students have to do when they're on placements.
Thank you for that. We have a couple of questions in the chat box as well, so I'm just going to read those out for everyone. Although we can introduce this in the early years, how will this be progressed on at the primary level?
Good question, isn't it? And I do think that more and more sort of work and policy driven sort of curricular led programs will bring in sustainability within the curricula. But I think especially through sort of those more formal learning subjects. So when we think about science, the importance of that, so continuing, but I think that relationship between the environment, the relationships that we have with the environment, and how we can continue that is something that does need to carry on. I think it's part of our lives. I think it's sort of a constant, really. It's a cross-cutting curricular issue, and you know, we can watch policy and see how that unfolds. But I do think looking at the activities and the experiences, and yes, these have been aligned to an early years foundation stage, but they can be built upon, they can be expanded. There is no reason why studying science shouldn't allow for those links to be made with sustainability, why we can't involve ideas around sustainability within pastoral. It's something that that all students and all pupils are very aware of now, or becoming more and more aware of, but not sure about how to learn and how to find out more. And that can sometimes raise anxieties, quite frankly. So I think it's important that the messages around it are that, you know, there are some very straightforward everyday things that we do, and we don't appreciate that they're contributing to sustainability. So it's about bringing out and drawing out that across all curricula, in terms of making the linkage to STEM and sustainability, and continuing that through curricular development in all areas.
And I'd like to add that obviously if you're in a school that has got a primary base within it, so you're in the nursery or reception class, that you have a go at trialling it, and then you offer to hold a staff induction day where you involve the rest of the staff and you make suggestions that they can use the resource as well. I have got my local infant school is actually going to trial it from January, and they're going to trial it across the nursery, the reception, the year 1 and the year 2. So they're going to try it because of the fact that just because I've linked the early years foundation stage to it doesn't mean to say that it can't be used with older children. And in terms of going into primary, at the moment the government has developed a strategy for sustainability. So if you've got any questions about sustainability in primary and pushing for more to be involved, then it's contacting the Department of Education to say that we need more sustainability in our curriculums, so that it's embedded deeply rather than just tacitly on the side.
Thank you. Right, we've got lots of lovely questions coming through now. So do you think this could be adapted for children with SEND?
Absolutely, all those activities and experiences some might lend themselves. It depends, doesn't it, on the specifics and the individual needs of each child. Absolutely, but it's very important. It's very, very important that these resources are used in an inclusive way. So, looking at the activities, thinking about individual needs, thinking about differentiation. Absolutely. And I think some of these activities lend themselves very much to that exploring, to their curiosity. And there's no there's no judgment or outcome here. It's about that curiosity. So absolutely, this is an inclusive resource, inclusive activities, inclusive intentions and aims. So yes, absolutely.
Thank you. We just have another one through saying, could this also be adapted for engaging parents and learning at home? And I would say absolutely. It's really been written in a way that you can definitely share things with parents and send home resource packs and ideas and lots of different ways that you can engage the parents in that. So I would say absolutely yes. The resources will be available. The resources are already available on our NCFE website, and what you will see across the top of the website is our sector specialisms. And if you click on the sector specialism for early years and childcare, you will see that resource is already there, ready for you to download for free. So you can have a look at that, you can implement, and absolutely feedback to us as well. We're very much open to hearing all of your feedback. We do have some conversations going on here. I'm just flicking through to see if I can group some of these questions together. There is a question about whether we could include a unit in the level 2 early years educator qualification. And instead of taking that as a question, I think we'll take that as a suggestion and have a conversation about that and see how we get on. But absolutely, we'll be considering how sustainability impacts on all of our qualifications and how we can provide more CPD maybe in this area. And then this is the last question that I'm going to take before we close for today. But any questions that we haven't answered today, please keep those questions coming, because we will answer them in our follow-up email if we do have any that we don't answer today. So the final question is all about how settings can be involved in feedback. So Janet, do you want to take that one about how settings can be involved in feedback?
Absolutely, yeah, certainly. So within the resource, you will see that there have been links made. So links made to those teaching standards that Dr. Diane Boyd talked about, and also links to how this resource can be used as an integral part of the teaching and delivery side of the Level 2 and Level 3 NCFE Cash Early Years Practitioner and Early Years Educator qualifications. So do take some time to look at that. In terms of what we need to do next. Sorry, Stacey, can you just bring me back on track? I'm getting carried away with what I want to say.
Sorry, Janet. No, that was perfect. That was answering that question about how people can get in touch. Yeah, of course you can.
Although might want to join in, she's just started barking. Yes, there are emails at the beginning of the resource. We would value anybody's feedback, and Janet touched on it before, but we would really like the idea of the next thing is to develop a resource that is made up of all of the Sustainable Development Goals, so a little bit more detail about each goal, followed by all of the case studies. So if you have had a really successful provocation, your children took you in directions that you never envisaged that you would go, and that you've recorded it and you've photographed it and you've got children's comments that you would like to include as a case study. I think Stacey and Janet were talking about, we'll try to find somewhere that's a holding bay on the website for case studies to go so that people can read them. But also we would like to also include them in putting them into maybe a resource, a book or something where it would be to celebrate as well your successes of implementing STEM and sustainability.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, the within the childcare careers education and childcare careers toolkit, we will have a space there where we can include those things. So Joe has very kindly put the link in the chat box for you, but as we said, it will be coming out in your follow-up email as well if you can't see that. So I'm just going to hand back over to Janet now to thank everybody and to close our session. It's been really lovely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody on the panel. I just want to take this opportunity to share a really heartfelt thank you to Dr. Diane Boyd for her passion, for her energy, and for her generosity in sharing the information and the knowledge that she has in this subject area, and to be able to bring that across into a resource that really engages the early years. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Joe as our subject specialist in science for his contributions and for really just reminding us of the opportunities that we may miss when we're doing some of these activities with young children. Really does help us to reflect and think about those different opportunities that are available. I just want to also thank Stacey. A tremendous thank you from me, Stacey, for your support in the development of this resource, for your coordination and for bringing things together in such a meaningful and expert way, and for your contributions from an early years point of view. So thank you very much to everybody on the panel. Thank you very much for everybody who's listening to this live webinar. And please, please do take the opportunity to have a look and maybe choose one or two of those activities that you could do if you're listening from an early years setting. Is there one or two there that you could work with? Maybe a student would like to have a go with something. If you're here from a provider point of view, from a school or college or university, then are there some activities in there that could be used as part of classroom delivery and looking at how they might be used with the early years with the children, and also to engage families. So thank you so much for your time. We hope you enjoyed the resource. Please, please do share any feedback, and we will continue to develop the resource in relation to policy development, curricula, and most significantly in relation to the impact that this is having within the early years settings. Thank you so much.